Who's ready to learn something today? So what's the big idea of the book of Leviticus? Now, Leviticus is the third book in the Bible, and the overall theme is sanctification. Now, if you've ever read Leviticus, my heart goes out to you. It's not a very entertaining read, but it's an important one because this book communicates that receiving God's forgiveness and acceptance should be followed by living right and spiritual growth. As we know, good works does not lead to salvation. Our salvation is what leads to good works. Because it's by faith, and faith alone is salvation, not by good works. Now, Israel had been redeemed by God. They were to be purified into a people worthy of their God. And if you look at Leviticus 19:2, it says, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, am holy." So if I'm holy, or God is saying, if I'm holy, you should be holy. Pretty cut and dry there. In Leviticus, we learn that God loves to be approached, but we must do so on His terms, by His conditions. That's pretty much for Leviticus. So now on to our animal spotlight. Today's animal is a bird you have seen so many times you probably could not count them in a novel. However, a lot of us don't know what the bird's actually name is. So today we're going to be talking about the chipping sparrow. They are found in almost every part of the United States and in the surrounding areas like Canada and Mexico. They can be found year-round in Florida, and they like wooded edges and wooded openings. They are commonly found in residential areas as well. Any kind of amusement park you've ever been to or theme park, they're all over the place. They are unaffected by human interaction. Their diet consists mostly of seeds of grass or forbs. Don't know what that is, but forbs. And does most of its feeding on the ground. Very common to see at bird feeders. Like I said, we've seen this animal tons of times. Now you know what it is. So on to our financial segment today. Our term is dividends. Dividends are money that is paid out to people who own certain stock. So if you had let's just say if you had a share of a stock that would cost you $100 and they paid you a 5% dividend, you would get $5 for just owning that stock. So if the price of the stock goes up, you obviously make money, and you also make the dividend. You see a lot of people use dividend stocks to hold their money because they're getting more interest than they would in a bank. If you remember last episode, we talked about savings accounts and how you got 0.25% interest. That is minuscule. But some dividend stocks are upwards to 8%, which is phenomenal. So every year you're getting, on top of the value of the stock, you're getting 7 to 8% in interest, which is good, or in dividend. It's the same thing, basically. Now, finding stocks that actually do pay the dividend, you'll have to look online. There's so many different ones. So dividends serve as a great source of income. And typically companies pay a dividend if they want to have a more stable stock. And this basically just boils down to, if you're paying someone a dividend to own your stock, you got a lot of people who keep their money in the stock market who put their money in that stock and just keep it there long term because they want that dividend. They want to be paid for owning your stock. So that makes it a little more stable because you don't have a lot of people getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out, buying shares, selling shares. That will cause the stock price to go crazy. So a lot of companies will do a dividend, keep it a little more stable. So today on the History Spotlight, we're going to be talking about the decline of the Roman Empire. The Emperor Commodus was 18 when he began ruling. That's super young. And his poor choices back then led to the beginning of the decline of the Roman Empire. He was disregarded the Senate and he bribed the army to stand by him. You know, typical politician stuff. His successors followed this pattern of bribery and led to poor leadership. Rome faced other problems too, like having to pay mercenary armies who had no loyalty to the empire, battling inflation due to many other valueless coins. See that coming back around in America. And then fighting off plagues, COVID, and fighting to keep the land that they had conquered. So not only did they conquer land way back when the Roman Empire was the strongest, but now they got to keep it and they got to fight other people off to keep that land. Again, it was just leading to the downfall of the Roman Empire. Eventually, they succumbed to the German invaders, overtook the empire in the west, and Constantinople held on as the capital of the Byzantine Empire. So that kind of just shows you, through mercenary armies, inflation and plagues, and poor decisions from a young guy, why the Roman Empire started declining. And a fitting quote today we're going to close it out with is, "There is nothing impossible to those who try." So obviously the Roman Empire wasn't trying, and that was by Alexander the Great. Y'all have a good one. Hope you learned something.